Hello, my name is David Luxbacher, and my graduation project will be talking about how video games have changed over time. This first clip will be about how the Nintendo Game Boy was made and why it was so popular. It was created by a video game historian.
I guess you could say the Game Boy's life began with the Game & Watch, a series of handheld games created by Gunpei Yokoi. Yokoi thought of the Game & Watch when he saw a businessman on a train playing with an LCD calculator. Each Game & Watch came with a single game and a digital clock on a small LCD screen, thus the name Game & Watch. From 1980 to 1991, Nintendo made a total of 60 different Game & Watch games. These little handhelds became very popular, and suddenly, the handheld video game market became a viable business in the gaming industry. Gunpei Yokoi decided to take the idea of Game & Watch a step further, and in 1989 his team at Nintendo came out with the Game Boy. It combined the portability of the Game & Watch with the graphics and interchangeable cartridges of the NES. While the NES did bring Nintendo to the forefront of the industry, their most successful system of all time is still the Game Boy, selling over 118 million units. The system was simple to turn on, you just moved the switch on the top. The back of the system was where you put the cartridges and the 4 AA batteries. On the left side was the contrast slider, which was for the screen, and a power connector. If you had the Game Boy battery pack, you can plug it in and play without the need of batteries. On the right side was the volume slider and the link cable connector, where you could link up with a friend and play games like Tetris. On the bottom of the system was a headphone jack. As you can see on the front, the control layout is exactly the same as the NES controller, which was great because you didn't have to get used to a new control layout or anything. In 1988, Minoru Arakawa, who ran Nintendo of America, saw a game at an arcade expo called Tetris. He became obsessed with the puzzle game and was convinced that this was the perfect game to package with the Game Boy. It was like bread and butter. Tetris was a huge success and was the perfect portable game to go with the Game Boy.
This next clip will talk about the video game crash of 1983, what it was, and why it happened. It was created by another video game historian.
It was September 1977 when the Atari 2600 followed the Atari Pong arcade cabinet to shape gaming history forever. The 2600 set many standards for the industry, including having the very first movie-licensed game, Indiana Jones: Raiders of the Lost Ark. It is because of milestones like this that the 2600 is often referred to as one of the greatest game systems of all time. All opinions aside, the 2600 changed the way we made and played video games indefinitely. But the system didn't achieve the success it did without any hardships in its lifespan. You see, at this point in gaming, all home console video games were made exclusively by the company of its own system. And for Atari, the developers weren't given any credit or royalties for the work they did. There was no such thing as a third-party developer in this business. That was until 4 Atari programmers quit their jobs at Atari and went on to make one of the largest third-party game publishers in the industry, Activision. Because of this movement, companies discovered that anyone who could program could create and publish an Atari game, and just about everyone did. Soon companies began making Atari games to advertise their products, and the library of games was flooded. All the while, instead of having a small amount of balanced systems, more and more game systems were being made, oversaturating the market with many cheap clones and knockoffs. With gaming journalism at its infancy, consumers had no idea what games and systems were actually worth buying. This eventually led to 2 of the biggest flops in the industry. The first began when Atari gained the rights to Pac-Man. They had developer Todd Fry make a prototype of the game, but when Todd sent it, Ray Kazar, Atari's president and CEO, insisted that they mass-produce the prototype to capitalize on the recently passed holiday season. With 10 million American Atari 2600 owners, Atari made and shipped 12 million copies of Pac-Man, a bold move they would come to regret, as it only sold 7 million copies. Unfortunately, the business decisions only got worse when Atari bought the rights to E.T. in late July 1982. Promising director Steven Spielberg that a game would be ready for Christmas. President and CEO Ray Kazar later stated, "We had literally 6 weeks to produce a brand new game, manufacture it, package it, and market it. It was a disaster. I mean, the programmers hated it. Nobody liked the game. In just a couple months, the market was completely destroyed. And in 2 years, video game revenues went from $3.2 billion to about $100 million, dropping 97%. This became known in Japan as the Atari Shock. It was known in America as the video game crash of 1983.
This last clip will talk about the Xbox and how it became successful in a market along with two well-established systems as competition. It was created about people who talk about the history of many different things on their website.
The Xbox was first released in 2001 as direct competition to Sony's PlayStation 2 and Nintendo's GameCube. Developed by Microsoft, the console wasn't expected to be able to compete in a market with two such well-established brands. However, the Xbox had something going for it from the moment of launch: exclusive rights to the now iconic Halo Combat Evolved. Heralded as one of the best games of the generation, the Halo series became a staple of the Xbox console, and one of the major contributors to its meteoric rise to the top. Another major factor in the Xbox's progression was the introduction of Xbox Live, a year after the console's release. Coupled with the system's hard drive, this allowed users to download content as well as play games against other players online, as long as they had a broadband connection. The original Xbox's lifespan was short, replaced by the Xbox 360 in 2005. The 360 was released a full year before its main competition, the PlayStation 3, and as such had a major head start in the race for console superiority, and the 360 went on to sell over 60 million units worldwide. However, it hasn't all been smooth sailing for Microsoft. The 360 was prone to failure, known as the Red Ring of Death due to the red ring that surrounded the power button. The issue became so widespread that Microsoft had to offer replacements for all broken consoles, which cost the company an estimated $1 billion. In 2010, a slim model of the 360, known as the Xbox 360S, replaced the original machine. 2010 was also the year the Kinect, an accessory that allowed motion input, was released. The peripheral sold 8 million units within 2 months of release, and was rated favourably by the majority of reputable reviewers.